Jen Statsky is the co-creator, co-showrunner, executive producer, and writer of the second season of Hacks on HBO Max. I'm David Buchanan with Gold Derby. Jen, such a pleasure to talk with you today. I
Thanks.
wanted to, oh, of course. I wanted to start where this first season ends off, which is Deborah bombing her final show at the Palmetto, but is very enthused about exploring her new material on the road, which is such an interesting and exciting idea for a place to end the season. So I just wanted to ask you about doing that at that time. What were kind of the discussions around, we want to structure the second season around a tour and going cross country?
Yeah, I mean, obviously in season one, when you meet Deborah, she's on autopilot and she's been doing the same old show and kind of the same jokes for so long. And then Ava comes in and shakes things up for her, and she's really kind of invigorated by this. And the fact that she bombs in that last show, as like much as no one wants to bomb, no one likes bombing, but it's also so exciting to her because it's like the thrill of doing that new material, doing the most like honest, vulnerable thing. And so that was always something early on in our writing of season one. We knew that that's where we were headed. And then, we always want to be true to life. And the true to life thing is that stand-ups often like work this stuff out on the road. And so she knows that there's something there with this show, but that she has to fine tune it. And so that she's going to need to go out on the road to do it, which was just like a very exciting jumping off point for us for season two, both, creatively for Deborah doing the material, but also for Deborah and Ava and Damien as they get forced together to go out on the road on this tour bus.
Yeah, it's incredibly exciting. And one of the exciting things about it too is, unlike the autopilot we see Deborah in season one, she's really more of an underdog in season two. So just wanted to ask you, what is inherently comedic and funny about seeing a character like Deborah, claw her way back to the top, as she's trying to anyway in season two?
Yeah, I mean, I think that like it's probably not funny or to watch someone just continually succeed and face no conflict or challenge. So the challenge of Deborah is that she is this very successful comedian who has a lot of money and stuff, but if she's going to like try this new creative endeavor, well, the idea is like that would be really hard. That would be really challenging for her. And in that conflict, as she is hitting the road again and trying to make this work and doing something new that she hasn't done in years, she would face a lot of adversity. And there's been various ways that happens over the course of the season as she's working this out. And yeah, it's just funny. It's so funny to see her because she's in control so much of the time. She's such a powerful figure and has this kind of ecosystem around her that's working for her. And she, in a lot of ways, she can have everything because like her money can buy her so much, but there's things that are still out of her reach. And it's very funny, I think, to see her struggle to get those things.
Yeah, no question. The whole arc of her new show too is about trying to tell her life story through comedy. The ups and downs that she's had over the course of her career. I was just wondering, as a writer yourself, how do you relate to that process? Not so much in, kind of chronicling, decade after decade of these, successes and failures, but just trying to tell your own life story through comedy.
Yeah, I mean, I think, something that my co-creators, Paul, Lucia, and I always wanted to do when we write the show and write these characters is yes, have them be funny, but like start at a very real, grounded place and have them feel like real people. And so in that way, so much of the show and these characters, like we just kind of infuse our own real life experiences or things into. So it's not like a direct, true to life, like none of us have ever been Ava dealing with a nightmare boss, like never had that exact scenario, but there's certainly bits and pieces of our real lives that find their way in the show. And I think that's just kind of, people respond to that authenticity in our show, hopefully, but also, in everything and in any show or movie or art you consume. I think like is something authentic and real that the person who's making it is drawing from their own life. It just stands out and you can kind of feel it and smell it when it feels real. And so hopefully that's what people feel when they watch our show.
Yeah, that's something I love about the new season too, is we really see a lot of character development on the characters that we, grew to love in season one. we get to see them in new situations and learn more about their family life, their personal life. So I was just also wondering, I know there's not necessarily a favorite character, but is there a character that you tend to write for, or that you really love to write for? And what is one of those backstories or the kind of details that you really like to explore this season?
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like a cop-out answer, but like the truth is like we're lucky to have this amazing cast. So like getting to write for any of these characters is like such a joy. So there's not like, I mean, obviously Ava being a comedy writer of a certain age is like the closest to me in experience. So like that's obviously an obvious connection point there, but there's not like one character really that I gravitate towards, or really any of us do. Like it's again, like when you're lucky enough to have like such a great cast, it's kind of just like a joy to get to write for any of them. Like it's so yeah, not really one character in particular, no.
That makes sense. But one character that we do kind of, I mean, out of all of them, because like I said, all of them have really great arcs, but Ava is really grappling with loss this season. You know, at the end of the first season, her father passes away somewhat unexpectedly. And we see that kind of follow her and her work through that grief all through season 2. So I wanted to just know more about, you know, that decision from season 1, how that affects her behavior in season 2, and why it was so important to kind of thread, you know, this comedy about, you know, trying to do a new stand-up set with this really lovely kind of undertow of grief.
Yeah, I think like the show in a lot of ways is you know, these characters have a lot of pain in there, like any real person has a like joy in their life, but also a lot of pain. And Deborah's story is evolving to be able to talk about that pain in her work and her art on stage. And so we also, you know, Ava's the same in that she's experienced this very painful, traumatic thing. And we just wanted to treat that with like realness and dignity. Like one thing we didn't want was, oh, this character's father suddenly passes, and you deal with it like when it happens in that episode, but then it kind of goes away and isn't a thing, because that just doesn't feel true to real life. You know, grief is it's a process that you're kind of like you're never done with that. Like you're dealing with that every day in little tiny ways here and there. And so we wanted Ava's journey to reflect that. So it was very important to us to not lose sight of the fact that this character did just go through this very traumatic thing that would really like uproot your, you know, life in that way. And so it was a very conscious decision to make sure her journey that was always laced in throughout it.
Yeah, it's so beautifully done too. And I love the way it kind of accentuates, you know, the somewhat mother-daughter relationship between Deborah and Ava. A small tease, we can't talk about any spoilers, nobody's seen the season yet, but Jane Addams does return as Ava's mother this season. And I love when we do see that, or we see DJ and Deborah, the kind of dysfunctional or challenged mother-daughter relationships that really juxtapose Deborah and Ava's relationship. So can you talk about, you know, just crafting Deborah and Ava's story, continuing in season 2 after the kind of dynamic we saw? You know, things certainly get a lot more complex, but they also are very close in a way that, you know, other characters on this series aren't necessarily.
Yeah. You know, one thing we talked a lot going into season 2, we talked about the phrase conflict is intimacy a lot, which sounds like real therapy talk, which it is, I guess, but like it's true. Like Ava and Deborah, as you know, as you see at the end of season 1, there is a fight and then they come back together and they're on better ground, and then there's something else that rears its head that threatens the relationship again. And without giving anything away, the working through that conflict, you know, in any, you know, like I said, like we always want the show, even though it's funny and goes to hidden places, to feel real and grounded in like the relationships and these characters. And the truth is, in life, like any relationship that's worth anything, that is truly intimate between two people, like it isn't just a straight line. There's conflict and there's challenges, and it's only through the working through that you develop like a real honest, true connection. And so that is very much so what these two characters have to do is if they want to get to that next level of having an authentic connection, they have to work through the difficult moments in those relationships. And so we certainly didn't want to shy away from that, from those two characters dealing with a fracture, because it was only, Paul jokingly said, build back better a lot, which is, maybe better for the show than the political slogan it was for Joe Biden. But like, we wanted Deborah and Ava to build back their relationship better after this thing that comes between them.
Yeah, and two brief questions before I let you go. One, I would just love to hear a little bit more about your process working with Paul and Lucia, since the show is about a collaboration, and the three of you are obviously working so closely. So what has that kind of process been like, especially on season 2?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a real true joy of this process is that the show is about how fruitful and wonderful and enriching to your life a creative collaboration can be, and that's the story of it on screen, but it's also the story of it off screen. We've known each other for a super long time, and we're all friends in real life, so it's kind of just an excuse to hang out with each other, which is wonderful. We would be trying to make each other laugh anyway, but we're lucky enough to get to do it and make a TV show out of it. So yeah, just feel super lucky to get to do this with people who not only that I love and they're my friends, but who I am massive fans of and admire their work, and their work makes better. And so yeah, just super lucky to do it.
And finally, I wanted to have you take us back to the Emmy Awards last year, where you won for writing. Belated congratulations on that.
Oh, thanks.
So I wanted to know, just what do you remember from that moment where they called your names for writing? And also, now that you have a few months to have reflected on it, what does that recognition mean to you at this time?
Yeah, it's super, it was really surreal. I always used to think it was lame when people said they were so surprised, because I was like, well, you knew you were nominated. It's not like Publishers Clearinghouse, they showed up at your door, surprise. You knew it was a chance, but truly we didn't think we just didn't think it would happen. We just really, we were so happy to be there and be nominated. That was so cool. And so for it to actually win was just it was so surreal. It's still looking back on it feels really surreal. And I think that night in general, and that whole weekend and that just Emmy season was so cool because, we made the show during a really difficult time with COVID. It was really a challenge for our cast and crew to get it done. And so to see our crew and everyone who worked on the show recognized in different ways by their peers and by the different guilds and the academy, it was just so rewarding to see everybody's hard work kind of get recognized that way. So yeah, it's it felt surreal then, and honestly, it still feels surreal now. It's crazy.
No doubt. Jen Statsky, congratulations on the second season of Hacks, and thanks so much for talking to Gold Derby today.
Thanks. Thank you.